Episode 51, Hypnosis. Once they returned from the fair, Mark and Evelyn stood alone in the moonlit courtyard. He stepped toward her. "I was so worried about you tonight," he stated. "I am sorry for causing all this trouble." She smiled sheepishly when a thought occurred to her. "By the way, I never got to ask you what happened with those girls." "I dismissed them as soon as they approached me." The smile vanished from his lips as his gaze turned solemn. "Why did you even ask them to look for me? Didn't I tell you I wanted to go to the fair with you?" His question had hit a nerve spot. Anxiety filled her chest as she looked away, not daring to look him in the eye. Something about his anger scared her, making her not recognize her brother. "I'm sorry," she apologized awkwardly. "It's just that I thought you've already reached the age where you should experience love and dating, and those girls were cute, too." Even while her explanation was justified, she couldn't help but feel a little guilty. "I know. You probably think I'm a burden, don't you?" His voice turned somewhat bitter. "That's why you want to push me out. Your only qualification for a woman is that they want me. That's it." "No, I didn't mean that. Look, I'm sorry." Unable to handle the sadness in his gaze, she quickly patted his shoulders. "I won't be like this in the future, okay? Just don't be angry with me." "Really? You're not going to do this anymore? You swear?" Evelyn couldn't see his face as she quickly nodded. "I swear, I'll never do such a stupid thing again, okay? I'll respect everything you do, even if it means you won't be dating for a while." "Fine, but you have to hug me first." Mark finally looked up as a sweet smile slipped onto his lips. She breathed a sigh of relief as she came over to hug him. "You shouldn't scare me like that, okay?" she whispered. "Don't be mad at me." "Then don't do anything like this again, okay? And don't push me toward any woman ever again." He stroked her hair as his eyes gleamed in the dark. "I don't need them anyway. Just you." Evelyn wanted to say that he'd have to find a girlfriend eventually, but now wasn't the time. Knowing how much their last conversation infuriated him, she kept quiet for now. After staying in the courtyard for a while, Evelyn was ready to head back to her bedroom. "Go to sleep, okay? Everything will return to normal tomorrow," Mark told her softly. "I'll be next door if you need anything." "Thank you for everything." She smiled sweetly, and it sent a pang straight to his heart. "No matter what, I can't ever stay mad at you." Nobody could separate them ever again. Just as she was about to leave, Mark said, "Hey, wait, I almost forgot. Tildy is here for your hypnosis. Let's get it done with first, then you can go to sleep." "Oh, I'm looking forward to it," she said as they walked up to the room. "I'll be right here," Mark said, lowering himself to a chair as Tildy gestured to her to lie on the sofa. Evelyn did as instructed, ready to drift off under Tildy's hypnosis. Tildy looked directly at his boss before turning his attention back to the woman on the sofa. "Evelyn, let's turn back time and follow the scent of the past," he whispered as he fanned incense over the top of her. His voice was soft enough to lull an elephant to sleep. "You're walking down the streets of an old town. The trees are green and lush, and you keep walking back in time. There's a beam of light, and you walk right into it, transporting you to the darkest parts of your past. Tell me where you are." I don't know. There's a crowd of people surrounding the place, and I see a little boy crying." She closed her eyes as her fingernails dug into her palms. "He's crying, and he looks so much like Mark." "Is he Mark? Is he?" Mark listened from the side of the room as he clenched his fists. "No, you're wrong," Tildy whispered in her ear. "Mark's at home, waiting for you." "Waiting for me? Mark is waiting for me?" "Yes. He's waiting for you to buy his favorite treat," he immediately said afterward, confirming her thoughts. "That's why you were out that day, to buy him that pastry he loves. You can't stay in the crowd. You have to leave." "Yes, I should go. I need to go home to see Mark." "Mark? Who is he?" She trailed off, furrowing her eyebrows. Somehow, the sad-eyed boy was gone from her mind, no matter how many times she tried to find him. "Who's Mark?" Mark's face turned extremely pale, and Tildy came to the rescue. He blurted, "Your memory is terrible, Evelyn. Mark is your younger brother. The two of you grew up together and had a great relationship. Remember when you lived in the little cottage out by the water, where you'd run around together? He has always been very clingy, but you love him all the same." "Ah, Mark is my brother. Yes, he is my brother." "That's right. Now, why don't you tell me what you see next?" Evelyn shifted in her sleep. "I'm at home with my parents. Dad's reading in the living room while Mom's playing the violin." "Oh, crap, it's time. I should practice my violin. Tomorrow I have exams. I can't just... My teacher..." "You're wrong again. Tildy's voice was like a shadow in the night. Your father is just an ordinary worker, and your mother works as a bagger in the supermarket. You never learned how to play the violin. You don't even know how to play it. Every day you attended the small nearby public school, from elementary to high school. You never had any close friends, but you've never minded that, because you've always been with Mark. Yes, that's true. Her lips curled up as she seemed to calm down. As soon as he saw the smile on his patient's face, he heaved a sigh of relief. He continued his work, and after an hour the hypnosis was finally over. And now you'll drift back to the present and sleep, he whispered. He snapped his fingers, and she lay limp on the sofa. Tildy finally walked out of the room. Mark, however, couldn't stop himself from walking to Evelyn's side and staring at her clueless face. A guilty feeling stirred in his chest. Why did she have to remember them now? Couldn't those things be kept in the past? Couldn't she lock them out for now? Sighing, he leaned over and kissed her forehead. Good night, sis, he whispered. Forgive me. He walked out of her room and took Tildy to his room. He finally glanced up at him. Does my sister need to be treated again? We will observe her for now, he shrugged. She only remembered a few parts from her memory, and it's pretty unimportant. Just a few little unconscious details of who she was. She'll be fine. But I still can't estimate when that barrier will break. That doesn't matter for now, Mark replied. I'll make sure she doesn't get triggered again. Tildy nodded. Do make sure of that. Now get some rest. I'll be leaving now. I'll see you out. Once Tildy had finally left, Mark sat alone on the bed, and he covered his head with his hands. What if Evelyn didn't stay with him when she had seen him that day? What if she had just walked past him? How would it have turned out for him? The identity he had now wouldn't exist. The tragedies that soon unfolded wouldn't have happened. He wouldn't have to experience her cries echoing across the street. At the thought, his stomach lurched. He wasn't worthy of being by her side. But you're the only one who gave me that name, he murmured, clenching his fists. You said that we'll be together forever, he whispered. Even if she'd remember everything one day, and when she would realize she didn't have a brother called Mark, he'd still stay by her side. Forever. Evelyn slept soundly in her room. The hypnosis and lingering scent of incense had lulled her into a deep sleep, in which she didn't even notice the black shadow hovering over the door. She snuggled deeper into her blanket, deep in her dreams. The black shadow flashed into the room with an arrogant smile. In his hand, the universal magnetic card glinted under the light from the window. It turned out it had some uses after all. Harvey walked into the bedroom. He had initially wanted to scare her, but as soon as he entered, he couldn't help but notice the lingering smell. This wasn't the same smell from the hotel. It smelled tangy and bitter. He frowned. It didn't smell like Evelyn either. And the strength of this fragrance, it seemed fresh. Plus, it also smelled familiar. Where had he smelled it before? He tried to rack his brain, but no specific place came to mind. He walked into the bedroom cautiously, like a thief in the night. Making sure that no one was around, he stepped back toward Evelyn on the sofa to check her breathing. Once he had confirmed that the woman wasn't in danger, he heaved a sigh of relief and leaned against the door. However, as he was turning around, he spotted incense residue scattered on the side of a table. He hesitated before collecting it in a tissue. He shoved it in his pockets. It was best to investigate it himself first. Sitting by her bedside, he shook her awake. Hey, wake up. Evelyn was sleeping so soundly that it took her a while to open her eyes. Are you okay? Harvey? She furrowed her eyebrows in confusion, still disoriented from her nap. Her eyes suddenly widened as she pulled the blanket up to her chest a few seconds later. She eyed him warily. What the heck are you doing here? I couldn't book a room, so I decided to stay with you. He shrugged as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. Stay with her? No, Mark is next door. You can't stay here. But I want to stay here. He raised his eyebrows. The more you refuse, the more I would want it. You think I won't call for help? You can call for help, but your brother will come into your room if you do. Then you'd have some explaining to do, Harvey said calmly, as if he already knew what she was going to say. She gaped at him for an entire minute. At this point, even she didn't know what to say. Fine, she sighed helplessly. You can stay here, but you have to leave tomorrow super early, okay? I have no problem with that. He finally stood up, satisfied by her reply. I'll go take a shower. Sure. What was he doing here? He could have easily booked a room at this hotel, no matter how full it was. He must have had some ulterior motives. Evelyn's cheeks reddened as she stood and walked over to lie on the bed. About half an hour later, she could feel the other side of the bed sinking as Harvey's arms slipped around her waist. She gasped. "I want to continue our kiss from the forest," he whispered. "No," she struggled under his grip. "Mark is next door. If he hears us, then don't let him hear you." Harvey turned her to look at him while his hand stroked her hair. Before she could say anything, she felt his lips pressed against hers. Evelyn's eyes widened, startled by his response. As she felt his hands sliding down her waist, she lost all control over herself. The night was truly filled with love-making and lingering touches. Evelyn woke up early the next morning, afraid that her brother would come and find her with Harvey. She was just about to get up and take a bath when Harvey's arms tightened around her waist. "You're leaving, just like that?" "You should too." She shot him a glare. "Otherwise he'll catch us." He didn't seem bothered to move. "Aren't you going to give me something?" he asked mockingly. "Like a good morning kiss?" "No," she frowned. What else did this jerk want? "All right," he shrugged lazily. "Then why don't I have breakfast with your brother later?" "You." She was tempted to bash this guy's skull, but there was nothing else she could do. The thought of Mark's furious expression was enough to give her the chills. She took a deep breath. "Fine," she murmured in defeat, "but don't push your luck." Harvey watched as she turned around and bent over. Her face was flushed, and she looked beautiful. It was quite a moving sight, even if annoyance caused the coloring. As soon as her lips brushed against his, he grabbed her by the waist and pulled her back against the mattress. She hummed, struggling under his grip, but she couldn't escape. What was he going to do next? Luckily, he wasn't up to his old tricks this time. After kissing her, he finally let her go. "Forget it," he said. "I'll take a cold shower. When are you coming back?" Evelyn was still a little disoriented after that kiss. As soon as she snapped out of her thoughts, she frowned. "I'm heading home later. I'll head to your house tomorrow afternoon, so tell Alex for me, okay?" "I'll tell him," he said casually. "You've given him a lot of inspiration from your last meeting. Many of my employees said he was in a crazed state, even sleeping at his office after that." Her chest tightened as soon as she remembered the designer's words. That man was a sadist, wasn't he? Not only was he tactless, but he enjoyed taking inspiration from people's suffering. What little mermaid was he even talking about? What foam was he looking for? Evelyn reeled in their meeting as he went to the shower. When he finished taking a shower, she pushed him toward the door. "There's no time left," she snapped. "Look, just hurry and leave. My brother will—" The doorbell rang and she froze. "Evelyn, are you awake?" How would Evelyn manage the situation now? Mark is obsessed with Evelyn. What would he do once he found out Evelyn had been sleeping with Harvey? And more importantly, how was this obsession related to the day Evelyn found Mark? What was it that Mark wanted Evelyn to forget? Episode 52, An Altered Subconscious. Hearing Mark's voice outside her door made Evelyn quake in her boots. She couldn't imagine what Mark would do if he found her with Harvey. It seemed as if her whole body had gone into overdrive as she glared at Harvey. What was she going to do now? "It's all your fault." "Instead of complaining about me," he retorted, "why don't you send him away?" Evelyn turned around and stomped toward the door. While she couldn't see her brother's face through the door, the thought of his anger made her tremble. "I just got up," she called out. "I'll be taking a bath, okay?" At first, Harvey was just leaning in the bedroom, minding his own business. However, when he saw just how nervous she was with her brother, he couldn't help but play a little prank. He tiptoed to her back, hugging her from behind. Evelyn was so scared that she almost cried. Luckily, he had covered her mouth just in time, so she only let out a muffled groan. "Sis, what's wrong?" He sounded tense. "Do you need any help?" "There's no need. I'm fine. Don't worry." She hurriedly lied as she shot Harvey a glare. It didn't look like it scared him as he tightened his grip around her waist even more. His blue eyes filled with ridicule as he pecked her on the lips. Evelyn's face was bright red with both anger and embarrassment. She struggled a few times, wanting nothing more than to get rid of him, but eventually gave up. If she made any more noise, Mark would only be more suspicious. "Come over once you're done, okay? Let's have breakfast together," he called out again. "What do you want to eat?" "An omelet would be good," she replied. "Gotcha." "Okay," she replied. "I'll go wash up right now." "Sure," he replied, and went back to his room. When she heard the door close, she sighed in relief. Evelyn's gaze hardened as she glanced at the man. "Can you move your head away from my neck?" she barked at Harvey. I just want to play for a while. His lips curled upwards, but I don't think I can. Just change and leave. Harvey finally changed into his work clothes. Glancing up at her, he said, I have something to tell you tomorrow, so remember to come over to the house on time. Don't be late, okay? Evelyn wasn't really in the mood to listen to him as she quietly opened the door. She pushed him right out when she didn't see Mark around. Don't dawdle, okay? She snapped, and go straight home. Before he could say another word, she closed the door. His jaw dropped. Was she treating him like a child? Did she think he was just some unruly child to be ordered about? Forget it. I'll settle the score with you tomorrow, Harvey whispered at the closed door. He patted the dust off his suit, only to feel the tissue in his front pockets. His eyes darkened as he hailed over his driver to pick him up. It seemed that he had much more investigation to do than he initially thought. Harvey finally went back to his house and handed the tissue to Bill Rogers, his private doctor. Analyze the composition of this, he ordered, and find out what it is for. The doctor narrowed his eyes. What is this? It's the ash left by some incense I smelled on the way here. Harvey frowned. I think it smelled familiar, so I brought it with me. Bill held the tissue to the light, eyes widening in recognition. Remember when you were being trained to resist hypnosis and brainwashing? They used this incense on you. That's why it's so familiar. Ah, it is a powerful mixture, isn't it? It is. Bill nodded solemnly. It can hypnotize people and even change their memories. But this type of incense isn't cheap. No ordinary person could have bought this off the shelf. Where did you get it? Harvey didn't answer him. It was very hard to get this type of incense. But could Mark have used this to help her sleep? This wasn't to help someone's sleep cycle, but to adjust their memories. If this was given to her by her brother, there was something else the man was hiding. As he stared at the ash and the tissue, he couldn't help but become more interested in this seemingly insignificant detail. Bill, you're quite familiar with hypnosis, aren't you? Well, I may not be the best, but I can do it. Then there's someone I'd like you to hypnotize tomorrow afternoon. Okay. As soon as Evelyn finished bathing, she noticed a red splotch on the lower side of her neck. She flushed in embarrassment. Damn it, I told him not to leave a mark. She spent the entire day with Mark. Things finally seemed back to normal. And when Monday finally came, she went to work as usual before heading off to Harvey's house right after work. As the man was busy that day, she and Alex were the only ones there. You don't look too good, Alex said, looking at her face as he furrowed his eyebrows in annoyance. How will I get inspired by that look on your face? Look, I thank you for giving me your notes, but it's hard to keep a smile on my face after what happened in the last session, Evelyn snapped with a scowl. He shrugged, pushing the glasses up his nose. I didn't say anything with a hidden meaning in mind. Even if it all turns into foam, I'm sure you both mean a lot to each other. Is that even a compliment? You just told me that everything will shatter in an instant. She stomped her foot, and without thinking, she said, Your emotional quotient is low, isn't it? I'm sorry if I have a low emotional quotient. I have spent all my life designing clothes. I couldn't care less about the people that wear them. He frowned, looking at her up and down. Besides, do you think you're better off than me? You just shouted at someone you work with. How stupid can that be? She was speechless. If she were smart on that end, she wouldn't have chased Timothy all these years. Didn't he have to go overseas to hide from her? If her emotional quotient was that high, why did she allow herself to be played around by Harvey? Her hands trembled as she gritted her teeth. Alex was probably the most annoying guy she had ever met, but he was speaking the truth. Either her emotional quotient wasn't that high, or maybe her emotional intelligence betrayed her in certain circumstances. In Harvey's case, it was his fault for fooling her like this. As if she had just called the devil himself, the young man appeared from the corner of the room. How did everything go? He smiled. Evelyn simply bared her teeth in response, and he frowned. Why are you looking at me like that? She ignored him. The bite mark he had left on her neck yesterday scared her. She had to cake her entire neck with makeup to avoid any uncomfortable questions. Just as Harvey was about to say something again, another man stepped out from behind him. Hi, I'm Harvey's private doctor. I've come to do a physical examination on him today. I heard something interesting going on here. Do you mind if I join? Alex clucked his tongue in disagreement. I didn't come here for a tea party, and I can't get inspired today with all this noise. With a turn of his head, he waved his hand. I'm going back to the office. Harvey and the doctor didn't say a word in response. After all, Evelyn was the person they were supposed to conduct today's test on. She furrowed her eyebrows in concern as they went into the living room. Why does he need a physical examination? Is there anything wrong with him? Bill was startled as he glanced in his boss's direction. While he couldn't see his face, he could tell that the man was oddly happy with her response. While Evelyn kept saying that she couldn't care less about him, it turned out that she was concerned about his well-being. Don't worry, miss, he smiled. Harvey is in good health. It was just a regular checkup, so no need to worry. Ah, she lowered her head and sighed. That's a pity. What? Do you want me to die? Harvey finally turned towards her as his mouth twitched. This damn woman was getting on his nerves. She stuck her tongue out at him. Afraid that the young woman would annoy him even more, Bill immediately intervened. After all, he had a date to go to after his work, and he couldn't do that if his boss kept him over. You're quite interesting, miss. I've been researching this for quite a while. He breathed in deeply as he took out a beautiful pocket watch. But would you like to try some hypnosis? Hypnosis? She narrowed her eyes in curiosity. I have tried it before. Really? Something flashed in his eyes, but his smile remained. What type of hypnosis? Evelyn rubbed her neck in embarrassment. I'm not exactly sure. It's just that when I couldn't sleep at night, I asked someone to hypnotize me to cure the problem. That way I can fall asleep. The two men shared a subtle look before the doctor continued. Well, this differs from that one. In fact, in my hypnosis, if I tell a person that he's a cat, he'll think he's a cat. He wouldn't be able to speak the human language. Her eyes widened. That powerful? Seeing that he was willing to try it on her, she slowly agreed. However, a thought suddenly occurred to her, and she shot Harvey a wary look. Wait, this isn't part of your plan. You wouldn't hypnotize me into a pet, would you? Harvey crossed his arms over his chest. If you become a cat, you wouldn't sleep with me anymore. I wouldn't want that, would I? You ass. As she was distracted, Bill immediately intervened and lulled her into a deep sleep. 3, 2, 1. Wake up. After Bill snapped his fingers, Evelyn finally opened her eyes. She could vaguely see troubled looks on their faces, but when she blinked, they immediately disappeared. How was it? I wanted to say that your hypnosis was a success, but nothing's changed. He shrugged as if he had been expecting this. Ah, so the hypnosis failed. Well, that can happen. Don't worry about it. Evelyn sat for a while and started arguing with Harvey when he told her that he wanted to attend an anniversary celebration as his date. She ordinarily didn't want to accept the invitation, but she had no other choice after being threatened with exposing her as the model. Fine, she snapped. I'll go. Seeing her stomp into the car, Harvey shoved one of his hands into his pocket. Bill stepped up behind him. The hypnosis failed, he stated. It seems that she's already been brainwashed. She said that she'd been hypnotized before and it cured her insomnia, he stated. Maybe that's why she couldn't be so easily hypnotized. The hypnosis I tried on her was like brainwashing. She didn't resist the process. She's very easy to put under. Bill shrugged. It could only mean that her subconscious has been altered before, and a kind of wall has been created that wards off any other attempts at hypnosis. Who hypnotized her then? Her brother? Harvey pursed his lips. There was still something hidden in the shadows, but he didn't know what it was. I'd investigate this some other day. Right now, there are other people who need to be dealt with more urgency than Evelyn's brother. His eyes flashed dangerously, like a wolf who had just spotted its prey. He still needed to get rid of the man that she carried in her heart. Behind him, Bill scratched his head in confusion. What did Harvey mean? Evelyn was sitting in the car. The chilly wind brushed against her skin, and she shivered. Was she going to that party? She couldn't help but feel nervous. Hell, she didn't even know how to dance. The more she thought about it, the more she became sure that a disaster awaited her. Little did she know how right she was. The grand day finally came. Her slim body was wrapped in a beautiful blue dress, and a diamond necklace adorned her neck. Her long black hair was tied back in a bun, and a few loose strands fell over her face, framing her exquisite facial features. She looked like an angel from heaven. Her gorgeous heels tapped against the pavement as she held her skirt. She could see Harvey waiting for her by the car, like a real prince waiting for his princess. Upon hearing the coming footsteps, he turned around. Harvey looked regal in his well-fitted suit. His black hair was combed back, revealing his beautiful blue eyes. Who knew that a little dressing up would make you so beautiful? His eyes glinted. Her face turned red in response. Was she beautiful? She smiled. While he couldn't take his eyes off Evelyn, the doctor's words continued to distress him. 100 questions crowded his mind. Why was Evelyn hypnotized? Why was her subconscious altered? What was hidden behind that wall in her subconscious? What secrets were hidden in that inaccessible part of Evelyn's mind? Episode 53, In the Mansion. Harvey shook off all his thoughts and said to Evelyn, "Let's go. Tonight is our company's anniversary banquet, so don't embarrass me. Got that?" Harvey's eyes glinted as he stretched out his arm. Somehow, his arrogance suited him. Evelyn reached out to take hold of his arm. "I won't embarrass you if you stop teasing me," she murmured. "Now, why would I do that?" He raised his eyebrow. "You're a beautiful lady, and it's only right that I treat you as the gentleman that I am." Gentleman? Yeah, right. However, as soon as she stepped into the car, nervousness washed over her. How could she not be stressed when she was standing beside him? He was the CEO of the Cage Group, the host of the party. He'd be the center of attention, and she'd be right there. "Are you nervous?" "No," she quickly retorted. "They say kissing could relieve the stress," he suggested. "Would you want to test the theory?" "No way. Don't you come near me." Evelyn felt him grab her wrist, and the next thing she knew, his lips were already up against hers. Her back slammed against the leather seat as his hand held the other side of her waist. How could this guy claim he was a gentleman? The jerk's just taking advantage of the situation. However, the kiss did help with the nervousness. The stiffness of her back slowly relaxed in his grip as her heartbeat picked up. It was probably because of this that she wasn't anxious when she stood in front of the splendid mansion. The outside was impressive, but the interiors were far more breathtaking. Her eyes widened as soon as she saw the tall columns and intricate designs. It was like she was stepping inside a castle rather than a house. As they reached the front doors of the banquet hall, she took a deep breath. This was it. As soon as the doors had opened, all the guests stopped in their tracks. Evelyn lowered her head slightly. This was an upper-class event. These guests had more money than she would probably see in a lifetime, and the person she was with was the richest of them all. He was haughtier than anyone in this room, and all of them would stop and greet him no matter what they were doing. "Are you still that nervous?" He raised his eyebrow. "If you fall, I might feel obligated to reach for you, and you know how all the women here would react. They'd push you off the cliff if they got the opportunity." "Will you help me if I fall?" "It's too embarrassing," he teased. "If you fall, you can pick yourself up." This guy was a jerk. But even then, she couldn't help but laugh. "If I fall, I'll drag you down with me." "Ah, you indeed are more ruthless than you know. I give you credit for that." A smile slipped onto his lips as they walked inside. However, just as they were about to step forward, a voice made Evelyn stop in her path. "Evelyn?" His voice was like a waterfall, gentle and moving. She was stunned for a moment before she hesitantly turned around. Timothy stood at the back, wearing a pure white suit. Beside him stood Megan, dressed in a peachy red dress. While he looked surprised to see her, Megan looked like she had expected to see her. She frowned. Why were they here? "Harvey, thank you so much for your hospitality. Evelyn, long time no see." Megan was the one who spoke first. She glanced up at Harvey to see him staring only at the man beside him. A bad feeling stirred in her stomach. Was he going to speak about her family business? Blinking slightly, Evelyn finally snapped out of her senses. "Megan, Mr. Green, I didn't expect to see you here." Timothy stared at her for a long time before he slowly nodded. "I didn't expect to see you here either." Harvey's lips inched up into a smile. While the man was the host for the night, he didn't have much of a role to play at this very moment. Taking her hand, he said, "Yes, we should get going. We have other things we need to get to." He didn't even wait for them to reply as the two left. Timothy stared at their retreating figures before glancing at the woman beside him. "How did you get Harvey's invitation?" She appeared guilty for a second as she remembered the man's words. With a sigh, she admitted, "I'm sorry, but he was the one who had asked me to do this. If I didn't agree, he would make things difficult for the both of us." She bowed her head. "I'm sorry. Please forgive me." Timothy was soft-hearted by nature, and he knew no one could refuse Harvey's words. Lowering his head, he nodded bitterly. "I don't blame you. Besides, you did the right thing. It's fine." He knew in his heart that Harvey was just marking his territory. His head pounded as he shoved his hands into his pockets. Wasn't it enough that he left her alone? He didn't want to see her dance with another man. If he did, he knew how much his heart would ache. His fingers twitched, wanting nothing more than to snatch her away. "Damn it, Harvey. What the hell are you planning?" Evelyn held her anger in check, but barely. "Mr. Green and Megan weren't supposed to attend a banquet like this," she snapped. "Did you invite them? What are you trying to do?" Who told you I invited them? Don't talk nonsense if you don't have any evidence. Besides, even if they came, you wouldn't be chatting with them anyway. He shrugged. You're to stand by my side the entire night. She couldn't say anything in response. A part of her knew Harvey had invited them, but she couldn't guess his motive. After all, they didn't even know each other. Though they met back at the restaurant, they didn't speak to each other. Ugh, the man was heartless. So why would he do something that seemed so petty and below his notice? It couldn't be because of her. Besides, he didn't know what had happened between them. Then why did he invite them? Evelyn shook her head. Perhaps she was overthinking things. She followed him into the banquet hall. The more steps they took, the more attention they garnered. Harvey had a handsome face, but Evelyn had also captured her fair share of admirers. That's the model of clock, right? Oh, she is gorgeous. She must be Harvey's lover of the month. There were whispers all around them, and Evelyn tightened her hold on his sleeves. She wasn't used to all these comments tossed in her direction. You don't have to do anything, just smile, he said in a low tone. If you don't know where to look, you can just stare at me. Evelyn finally gazed up at him before she quickly lowered her head. Staring up at him would make things more chaotic for her heart. Harvey occasionally stopped to speak to a few guests and even introduced them to her. She smiled and nodded at their greetings. However, Zach suddenly stopped them in their tracks. Harvey, he whispered, there's something I need to tell you. He glanced at Evelyn. Wait for me. Her eyebrows knitted together worriedly, and he squeezed her hand. I won't be far away, okay? You'll be fine. As soon as she relaxed, he followed Zach down the hall. What's wrong? Did something happen? Norman has been involved in the planning of this celebration. He's been appointed by Madame Dolores. Zach took a deep breath. You know of his temper, so I'm not sure I can predict what will happen next. At the sound of the man's name, his face turned bitter. Norman, of course, that damned brat, had to show up. He had never done what was expected, so being ordered around by the old woman made it even harder to control him. Harvey's gaze subconsciously swept towards Evelyn, and he frowned. Send someone to search for him, he commanded. Find the brat and get him under control, whatever it takes. Yes, boss. Zach nodded and left. Harvey made his way toward Evelyn. While he had left for just a short while, she had already gotten herself into a very uncomfortable situation. Why don't you drink with me? It's just one, the unknown man insisted. Before he could say anything further, Harvey wrapped his arm around her waist. She doesn't drink. Ah, Harvey! The man appeared startled as a strained smile slipped across his lips. If one would look any closer, they could see him shaking like a dog. I just wanted to celebrate with this model with a drink. Clock had a good advertising plan, and I am sure your sales will reach all-time high this year. Is that so? Then perhaps I should celebrate with you instead. His eyes glinted as he grabbed the glass in her hand and took a sip. Upon seeing this, the other man just turned to leave. She sighed in relief. It's a good thing you came because the guy was pestering me to death, she said in a low voice. I didn't know what else to do. You don't have to entertain people like him. Just leave if you aren't interested. He shrugged. Do you want to eat something? He asked. No, I'll just stand here with you, she declined. With all these people surrounding her, watching her every move, she couldn't find it in herself to take a bite. Timothy's gaze drifted towards the young woman at the corner of the room from a distance. She was wearing a gorgeous, glittering outfit, and she looked regal, magnificent. No one would have guessed that she was some ordinary waitress. She had grown to something so much more than that. They had been so close to each other once, but now he could only stare at her from a distance. Just then, Harvey looked in his direction. A bold smile slipped on his lips as he raised his wine glass. He smiled bitterly, mirroring the man's actions. There was no need for him to show off. Timothy had already been cast aside by her. He couldn't take her away even if he wanted to. The night he had with her quickly came to mind, and he shook it away instantly. He could no longer do anything to make her like him back, so he accepted this bittersweet ending with a glass of wine. The banquet became more crowded as different big shots stepped into the room. As it was time to introduce the host, Harvey held Evelyn's hand and asked her to dance with him. However, before she could agree, a group of people stepped into the entrance. There was a woman at the center of the group. Everyone immediately turned toward her. Some of their eyes widened, while others' jaws dropped. There was something so regal and elegant about this old woman that everyone knew she wasn't to be messed with. Behind her was a beautiful woman dressed in luxurious clothes and a handsome young man standing beside her. Surrounding them were a series of staff members and other assistants. However, she stilled when she turned her head to ask Harvey. His face had turned cold and dark, and Evelyn could feel the temperature drop by a few degrees. While his face remained impassive, his eyes told a different story. A shiver shot down her spine. Who were they? Episode 54, You Are Mine. The way his mood changed, it was obvious that Harvey didn't like the people who had just come. Just then, Evelyn remembered how he and his grandmother didn't have a good relationship with each other. Then, could it be that this old woman was... Before she could go any further, the old woman approached them. He straightened his back. Harvey didn't say a word. The old woman cocked up an eyebrow. Have you forgotten to respect your elders? Just because you've become the CEO of my company doesn't mean we're beneath you just yet, she said mockingly. His body tensed up a little. Evelyn could feel her heart racing in her chest as the indescribable nervousness washed over her. Afraid that he'd do something stupid, she inadvertently squeezed his hand to warn him. While stunned for a moment, he glanced at her worried eyes and let go of her hand. This was their anniversary celebration. If he did something wrong, he'd have to hand over his position as CEO. Knowing this, he suppressed his emotions and loosened up. Grandma, welcome, the old woman snorted arrogantly. The young man behind her immediately stepped in to greet him. Harvey, it's been a while. Harvey simply pursed his lips in response. Dolores turned to the other young man and whispered, Norman, why don't you take the people behind you into the inner hall first? All right? Of course, Grandma. Norman replied with a bright smile as he led the people away. Evelyn glanced up at him as he did so. Did she imagine things, or did he glance in her direction? She was certain it must be a trick of the light. However, just as she was about to thread away, she felt another gaze on her petite frame. A chilly feeling stirred in her stomach as she trembled at the sight. Something about the old woman made her look even more intimidating than the man beside her. Today is our annual celebration, the old woman slowly spoke. Yet you've brought a woman of no standing with you. It truly is a shame, don't you think? Harvey's lips curled. On the contrary, she's our model for the season. He drawled, as if explaining it to a 3-year-old. Not only has she increased our sales, but she has also garnered the attention of different people around the nation. Her identity that we have kept secret has boosted our market placement. But at the end of the day, she's just a model, just a way for our family company to garner more profits. She sneered before motioning another woman to step forward. This young lady beside me is Sierra Masterson, a well-bred friend of our family. Why don't you let her be your date for the night? Good evening, Harvey. Sierra greeted him with a telling look that she was fine with the arrangement. Evelyn could feel her heart trembling. Of course. How could she compare to someone like that? Not only did she come from an ordinary family, but she had little background in higher society. Despite this, she could have been less harsh with her. I've already chosen my date. As for Ms. Masterson, please enjoy the party. And Grandma, it's time I take your leave. After all, I am the host of this banquet, and my job is to entertain the other guests. Harvey didn't care about his grandmother's plans as he pulled Evelyn away. The old matriarch's face had turned ugly from the rejection, but Harvey didn't turn back. Evelyn couldn't help but glance around, only to see everyone else staring at them. Here, everyone's self-esteem was high. If he had left his grandmother just like that, then it would mean that she'd create more problems for him in the future. Pulling on him, she whispered, There's no problem. I can leave. It's not good to anger your grandmother. This is none of your business. Don't worry about it. Her words of concern were stuck in her throat, and she closed her mouth. Right. At this point, her words meant nothing to anyone in the room. What status did she have besides being a model out of necessity? What right did she have to interfere? She was nothing. The knowledge made her very uncomfortable, but Harvey was far too consumed with anger to care at this moment. All he could think about was his grandmother's appearance. He didn't even think of how much his words had hurt her. Timothy couldn't help but stare at everything from afar, and his face had gone darker by the minute. Megan sighed in neglect. Look, I know I lied to you, but I wanted to be your date for the night. Why did he keep looking at that woman? It's not as if she had given him any notice. Looking like a deer caught in the headlights, he lowered his head. I'm sorry. You know how that old woman is. People with that kind of status wouldn't say anything nice to someone of Evelyn's stature. Evelyn may not look strong, but she was sensitive to insults like that. What the hell was Harvey even doing? Timothy would be more tempted to take her away from him if he continued acting like this. On the other side, Sierra stood behind Dolores. I really can't do this, Grandma, she said helplessly. Harvey wouldn't even look in my direction. The older woman stared at the couple from afar. He's just a child who has found a new toy. Soon enough, he'd get bored with her as he did with every other model. However, no matter how much they love to play, children shouldn't indulge themselves too much in these toys. Otherwise, the adults would be forced to step in if need be. Of course, Grandma. Nodding, Sarah followed the old woman to the other room. As soon as the two had left the vicinity, the venue became lively again. The upper class was all aware of the strenuous relationship between grandmother and grandson, so to have them appear at the same place had turned the atmosphere around in a flick of a finger. The lights dimmed around them, and the band music echoed across the hall. The ball was about to begin. Evelyn held out her hand for him to take, and he pulled her closer to him. As the spotlight shone on them, he leaned over to whisper, "Forget everything that just happened and concentrate, okay? And you better not step on me." She plastered a smile on her face. "The more you warn me like this, the more nervous I will become. Instead of threatening me, why not just tell a joke?" "I don't know how to tell jokes." "Then why don't you let me tell you one?" "Do you want to die?" "Jerk. I just asked you to dance in front of hundreds of people. Everyone from the upper class is staring at you in awe right now. What are you so nervous about?" "Who enjoys being watched like this? I'm not a dancing monkey." "You look like one." "Do you want me to step on you?" They moved backward with the beat and spun across the room. As their gazes intersected from time to time, a small smile slipped onto her lips. Although she didn't want to admit it, he relieved her nervousness a bit. Dancing with him made her feel like her body and mind were skyrocketing into space. She couldn't help but sneak a glance at his bright eyes and emotionless face. Was he in a better mood? As the two of them danced to the beat, a young man on the second floor was leaning against the railing. His gaze fell onto the pleasing scene as he tilted his head in curiosity. "What you're doing is very dangerous, Norman." Zach stood beside him. "Is it?" Norman lifted his head and chuckled. "Are you watching me then? You have plenty of wonderful ideas, so it's only my responsibility to watch you at all times, just in case any of these ideas ever come to fruition," he retorted politely. The man simply shrugged in response. "Tell me, how much does he care about that young lady?" Zach could feel his heart stopping. Norman had a lot in common with Harvey. They were both extremely talented since they were kids, and someone ultimately trained them to be the very best. While Harvey had shown extraordinary ability in business, Norman had an equally extraordinary ability in another area, entertainment. Norman had always enjoyed playing games to entertain himself and the surrounding people. Norman's father had just invested in many large entertainment venues where they offered different kinds of things that the rich could play with. There were even practices that many haven't even heard of. While he was brilliant in coming up with more games, his personality had become crazier through the years. He couldn't let him know what Evelyn meant to Harvey. Otherwise, no one knew what he'd do. "Norman, what are you talking about?" Zach leaned over. "She's just another chess piece that he is using to go against his grandmother. Why would he care for her?" "If that's the case, do you mind if I borrow her for a bit?" His eyes shone in the dark, revealing a pair of blue eyes. His mother was an English woman, so his looks appeared more foreign than his cousin's. "She was so beautiful in her last advertisement, and I thought of asking her out on a date." Zach clenched his hands. It seemed that his words had done nothing but encouraged him. But it didn't matter. He just had to think of something else. Even if she's just an insignificant chess piece, she still plays as his woman. He smiled faintly. "I don't know if she'd agree to your request." Norman shrugged, suppressing the urge to roll his eyes. He had only really spoken to him because he was bored. He didn't have any interest in speaking to his cousin's loyal lapdog. Besides, he already knew everything. If that's the case, he'd just have to get rid of him. That way he could play with this beautiful lady later. The opening dance had ended, and the elite soon followed suit. "Do you want to dance with me?" Megan softly asked as she pulled Timothy's hand to the center of the ballroom. He didn't refuse. Evelyn knew him so well that she didn't need him to turn around for her to identify him. Seeing him lead Megan to dance, she couldn't help but think back to their school prom, where he was nominated prom king. She didn't know how to dance, and she was also wearing a pair of yoga pants and a baggy tee. But Timothy, with his well-ironed suit and leather shoes, still danced with her. Even though her limbs were stiff and her actions were clumsy, he grabbed her by the hand and led her. Looking back, she couldn't help but cringe at the memory. She was silly then. "They're like a match made in heaven," Harvey suddenly said. Blinking, she smiled slowly. "They are, aren't they? They've been together for so long that it's only natural for them to move in sync." Even though she knew that she and Timothy belonged to two different worlds, she believed that love could bloom between them. She was so naive then. They were the perfect couple because they knew they were right for each other from the very start. Shouldn't you be sadder than this?" He tilted his head. "Don't you like him anymore?" Evelyn frowned. So you invited him over because you think I still like him? You want to see me get hurt and embarrassed? Harvey stared at her bright eyes and wondered what would happen if he said yes. I invited them, he admitted, but it wasn't for the reason you think. I just wanted both of you to see things clearly. She stared at him blankly. What do you mean? See things? I want Timothy to see how poised you've become and how this beauty doesn't belong to him anymore, but to me. I simply wanted to tell him that he shouldn't try to get close to you, that you're mine. He locked her in a tight embrace as if she was his prey, and his eyes glinted. As for you, I want you to know that you're my woman, and you shouldn't think of anyone ever again. Don't even look at other men. Her heart skipped a beat and she staggered back. The beautiful music played around her, and Evelyn could see everyone dancing in the background, but all she could hear was the overwhelming sound of her heartbeat. I'm not yours, she stuttered out. You are, Harvey retorted, his words even more aggressive than last time. His words made her heart pound. If she was his, then he was hers? No. No matter how much he said he liked me, she knew that his love would run dry eventually. He'd never love her the way she wanted him to. They were all liars. Timothy had been so gentle and sweet with her, yet he refused to accept her feelings for him. Harvey told her that she was his, but he wouldn't love her with his whole heart. One day he'd disappear from her life, and everything would revert to the way it was, when she was miserable and heartbroken. You're being unreasonable, she snapped. I won't listen to you. No, she didn't want to be dragged into this mess. Her heart just wasn't ready for it. Her gaze moved to the crowd. She had to run. If she continued to stay here, who knew what would happen to her heart? Could she run? Would her fear of abandonment get the better of Evelyn? And would she do something stupid in front of so many guests that would embarrass Harvey? Could she really run away from what she had walked into so willfully? Episode 55, Norman's Game. Evelyn was shaken to the point of collapse, and she didn't know how long she could hold on. Lifting the hem of her skirt, she turned to leave. She needed to escape. She had to. Harvey was caught off guard by her sudden movements and frowned. Where are you going? I'm not finished talking with you. This is Harvey. Before he could finish, an elegant voice called out his name. Your grandma has called you over. It was none other than Zach. He was still insistent on grabbing Evelyn by the arm. He refused to look at anyone other than her as he snapped, I'm not free now. Despite his snappy tone, his bright smile remained. The shareholders are also waiting. With shareholders, he couldn't be as stubborn. He stared directly at Evelyn, who still had her head lowered. Wait for me, he whispered. Don't leave. I'll be back soon. When he left, she gazed at his retreating back and sighed. Looking out to the dance floor, she could see strangers all around her. They were all from the upper class. Not far away, she could see a couple of men ogling her. An uncomfortable feeling stirred in her chest, and she turned away from their approaching figures. When Timothy saw her predicament, he let go of Megan's hands and was just about to follow her. However, she hurriedly grabbed hold of his sleeves before he could move. Don't leave me here, she whispered. I don't know anyone. He glanced at Megan, then gazed back at Evelyn. As if someone had read his thoughts, a young man appeared in front of her. A bitter smile slipped onto his lips. The young man seemed to be a member of the Cage family. It turned out that he didn't need to worry at all. She didn't even need someone worrying about her. He clenched his fists. He kept saying that he wouldn't bother her any longer. But every time he saw her helpless face, he couldn't help himself. I won't go, he comforted his partner with a smile. Don't worry, I won't go. Besides, she didn't look like she needed his help anyway. It was just as he had imagined the day he left her back in the past. There would always be someone else, and he just had to let her go. See? She was just fine. Look, miss, you're in trouble. The young man smiled as his charming eyes glittered under the artificial lights. He looked similar to Harvey, which made her feel a bit relieved. I'll help you shake them off. He must be related to Harvey's family. Okay, thank you. A grateful smile slipped onto her lips. The youth pulled her out the side door of the banquet. Evelyn glanced at the men. Seeing that they were no longer chasing her, she breathed a sigh of relief. Thanks, she said to her rescuer. You can let me go now. Even then, the young man was unwilling to release her. He rolled his eyes and snorted.
If I let you go now, you might land in some other troubles. You are so naive, aren't you? You're my cousin's date, he lectured. Women are jealous of you, and men are undressing you with their eyes. It's dangerous for you to stay alone in there. What was my cousin even thinking? Where did he go?
Right. Her heart shrank in her chest. He was called away. The only thing she wanted to do now was to run.
Right. I forgot to introduce myself. My name's Norman, and I'm quite familiar with this place.
His lips curved into an even blinding smile.
Why don't I take you somewhere you can rest? My cousin can pick you up later.
Evelyn slowly nodded. While Harvey was always cold and calculating, Norman seemed to be sweet and warm. Right. Thank you. She slowly followed Norman, and when they reached the 5th floor, he suddenly clapped his hands.
Damn it. I forgot, he yelped. I don't have the keys with me. Do you mind waiting for me here?
Oh, yeah, sure, she nodded. Norman turned around and left, and Evelyn was left waiting in the middle of the corridor. Suddenly, she felt someone's breath down her neck, but before she could react, someone clasped her mouth shut. Hey, Her entire mind had gone blank. Why was someone attacking her? Who dared do such a thing at a large banquet? What was happening? The man immediately dragged her down the corridor and into a completely dark room. Before she could scream out for help, he quickly taped her mouth and blindfolded her. All she could see was darkness. There seemed to be more than one person around her, given how fast they worked around the ropes. They didn't say anything else, which made her even more nervous. What the hell were these people doing? Who were they? She tried to scream, but her mouth was taped shut. She struggled to move her head around to get rid of the tape, but to no avail. Just then, she felt her body being lifted from the ground. Please, let me go. She wanted to scream, but all that came out was a muffled grunt. Zach glanced at his watch anxiously in a room on the 1st floor. He could hear the continuous stream of water coming from the bathroom. He repeatedly tapped his foot on the tiles as he glanced back at the door. Norman was inside for more than 15 minutes.
Norman, could you hurry up a little?
There was no reply from him, and this made Zach frown. He tried calling out a few times, but there was still no response. Noticing something was up, he grabbed his key and opened the door. As soon as he did so, the water splashed against his feet, but Norman was nowhere to be seen. All he could find were his drenched clothes and blank walls. There must have been a hidden door here somewhere. Fuck! Zach cursed under his breath as he hurriedly shut off the faucet. How could he forget that the man's father was the one who had built this manor? He knew all the in and outs. However, as soon as he ran back into the hallway, all the lights went out. The guests shared a look as a large screen lowered down from the ceiling. Suddenly, Norman's playful voice echoed across the hall.
Welcome to the banquet, everyone. Do you know what all these banquets have in common? They're boring and no fun. So I thought, why not do something special?
He grinned.
It's why I've specially invited a model from the company to take part in this very exciting game.
Zach's face turned pale. He pulled aside a security guard. Find Norman and Evelyn, now! After saying that, he stomped toward the inner hall. A part of him knew that something was bound to happen, and as soon as he entered the hall, he was proven right. The big screen from the banquet hall flashed, and everyone in the room bounced back in surprise. They could all see Evelyn kneeling in a glass water tank. Her hands were tied, and her mouth was taped shut. The water had already reached her waist. Evelyn couldn't see a thing. All she could feel was water splashing against her waist. It was clear she was panicking. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Her wrists were already chafed from her constant struggle. She didn't know who had done this, and she didn't know why they had done something like this. Someone save her! Harvey! Where was Harvey? While Evelyn was panicking, all the guests stared at her shaking figure on the big screen.
The game's pretty simple, he continued. You need to find this water tank to save the poor princess. The man who finds her will spend 24 hours with her. The ladies who find her will receive a valuable jewelry gift whose value I won't tell you. You have 15 minutes, so best of luck.
Huh? A game? Do you think it's real or fake? The model looks like she's struggling.
Must be a fake, but I gotta give it to her. Her acting is superb. I'll try my luck here. You guys go to the other end.
Everyone went from being confused to utter excitement. The little show of Evelyn on the screen made it even more exciting for them. They didn't know that they were playing with someone's life. Or maybe it was the knowledge of it that made this game even more exciting for these sadist monsters. Panic dawned upon Zach.
Damn it, I am useless. Harvey had given me just one job, to look after Norman, and I failed. Evelyn was in trouble. However, before he could move, someone grabbed him by the collar. What the hell is going on? Zach jumped, but he grabbed hold of his hand. Calm down, he said quickly. Please, it's not the time. We need to find Evelyn first. Find her? Timothy's face turned red. He didn't know what this entire thing was about, but if there was one thing he knew for sure, this wasn't a game. So Harvey invited me over to see this? He already knew that he had no chance with Evelyn, but that didn't mean he would allow someone else to mistreat her. Timothy, I'm sure this is all just a— Shut up! He roared, and Zach immediately went silent. He had never been this angry before. While he may have lost the right to stay with her, he certainly would not hand her over to Harvey. Harvey did not care for her. He allowed them to put her in harm's way. I swear Harvey knows nothing about this. I'll tell him what Evelyn is going through. She needs every single one of us to help right now. Zach tried to remain calm as he sped toward the inner room. Timothy clenched his fists and stared at the large screen. Evelyn, wait for me. I'll find you. Zach pushed the door open and everyone turned to look at him. The head of the family and the shareholders didn't look too pleased by his sudden appearance. He would have pissed and run off if he were any other secretary, but he was already used to their glares. I'm sorry, but I have important things to report to Harvey. He remained calm as he leaned over and whispered the updates. What did you say? Harvey suddenly stood up and his gaze immediately turned cold. However, his grandmother remained unfazed as she raised her eyebrow. Don't you think it's a little inappropriate to shout in front of our shareholders? She asked, feigning boredom. He clenched his fists. I'll take your leave now. I have a few important matters to take care of outside. He didn't even wait for their reply as he stormed out of the room. How dare he speak to us like that? Oh, how rude. The old lady cleared her throat and everyone quieted down. This banquet isn't over yet, so it's only normal for the host to be busy. She smiled. Let's not talk about this anymore. When Harvey walked out, he saw that everyone was scattered around the banquet floor. He didn't look amused. Where's that brat? I'm going to kill him. Evelyn was his. No one should touch her. Who would have thought that someone would try something like this on his turf? She must have been so afraid right now. She must be saved. Must be saved. Now isn't the time to look for Norman. Evelyn is in real danger. The water had already reached her waist when the video was played, and the game had a time limit of 15 minutes, Zach said quickly. 6 minutes had passed, and if we continue going around like this— Harvey still had a bitter expression on his face as he turned around, trying to catch the sound of the running water. I've searched all over the second floor, but I found nothing. Have you checked the rooms on the top floor? The rooms haven't been opened yet, now that I think about it. They flagged someone down in the hallway. Has anyone checked the rooms on the 4th floor? No sight of her there, or the 3rd. Should we try looking around again? Were we tricked? Why wasn't she on any floor we've checked? This is stupid. Tricked? I bet somebody had already found the tank and refused to tell us. Harvey closed his eyes as he struggled to calm himself. Glancing at his assistant, he ordered, have someone test the walls on all the floors. There should be a hidden room around someplace. Find it. Yes, sir. Zach nodded as Harvey started down the hall, running without another word. Everyone couldn't help but recognize him with a smile. They called out to him in amazement. We didn't know you're also joining in on the game. Harvey smiled casually and chuckled. Oh, well, the prize is pretty good, so we're all in for a treat, aren't we? While he was worried, he couldn't let it show. Norman knew he wouldn't be able to mess with this celebration, but being caught up by these crowds would only waste his time. That's right, a celebration. A thought suddenly occurred to him, and he immediately called Zach. Ask someone to turn off all the lights, he ordered. Then light up the fireworks. But Harvey, he didn't even let him finish as he hung up the phone. He only had 5 minutes left. The water had already reached her neck, and waves splashed across her face. Evelyn shivered as the cold breeze brushed against her face. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Harvey, save me, please. Where was Evelyn? Where had Norman hidden her? Would Harvey be able to find her in time, or would Norman be the ultimate winner of this barbarous game? Was Evelyn the pawn who was about to be sacrificed in this family feud? Episode 56, The Savior. Just as ordered by Harvey, fireworks immediately appeared. Bang! 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 Their bright colors lit up the night, and their noises highlighted the crowd's delight.
It was their celebratory banquet, so their fireworks were unique. With different shapes and colors, it immediately drew the attention of the upper class. People gathered around the balcony, taking both sides of the corridor. While the hunt was fun, it didn't hold their attention for long. Harvey took this opportunity to look for her himself. Wow, it looks amazing! I bet they had this custom made at. The crowd all gossiped about the display. None of them noticed the tall man hovering in the background and how his face had shifted from calm to anxious. Where was it? Where was the secret door? Harvey had taken advantage of the darkness as he felt his way across the corridors, gritting his teeth. After searching for the hidden door, he finally found a space where the block was loose. He breathed as quietly as possible. However, just as he was about to push it open, he felt another hand clasp the same surface. He raised his head only to be met with Timothy's gaze. "Let go," he snarled. "You don't have the right to stay by her side if you keep pushing her into trouble like this." "I may not have the right, but neither do you." Harvey's eyes glinted coldly as his hand pushed against the door. "If you can't give her anything, don't bother acting like some knight in shining armor. And you? Do you think Evelyn's feelings are to be toyed with? You better think twice. You don't have the right to interfere with our relationship. Look, you had your chance before and you screwed it up, so don't embarrass yourself any further." Harvey pushed him aside and raced into the secret door without another word. As soon as he had gone inside, he heard the water splashing against the glass. He ran down the stairs to see Evelyn floating in the tank, the water at mouth level and her face squeezed into the little space left as she trembled. His chest tightened. "Don't be afraid," he called out, hurrying over. "I'm here, okay? I'll save you." She could only whimper in response. Harvey looked around the water tank only to see a lock on the side. It needed a password, a combination of 46 letters and numbers. His expertise could take him around 3 minutes to unlock it. Evelyn couldn't hold her breath underwater that long. The water level was about to exceed her nose. If this happened, she'd only be able to stay there for over 30 seconds. He squeezed his eyes shut again as 1,000 alternatives ran through his mind. He opened his eyes and wrapped his jacket around his hand. "I'll let the water out first. The tank is locked using a password, and I need a couple more minutes to solve it." He took a deep breath. "Can you still hear me? If you can, nod your head." She gasped while shaking. She couldn't breathe. Darkness enveloped her completely as she struggled in her ropes. Harvey took a deep breath and used all his strength to punch the water tank. The cracking sound echoed across the room, but it didn't break. His left fist throbbed in pain, but he didn't care at this point. All he wanted was to get Evelyn out of there. He punched again and again. Finally, the wall of glass gave in. The water flowed out through the small opening, and the water level dropped. Blood continually streamed down his wrist, but all he could do was concentrate on breaking the code. "I'll get you out of there," he said, narrowing his eyes. 2 minutes later, Harvey finally unlocked the password. As soon as he did so, the water retreated and the side door opened. He didn't waste time and rushed inside to untie her. As soon as he released the ropes, Evelyn fell into his arms. He slowly untied the blindfold and then ripped the tape from her mouth. She gasped, and he tightened his grip around her. "It's okay. It's okay." Evelyn was sniffling in his arms, and he could only cradle her up against his chest. However, as soon as he looked around, he saw a camera held up at the corner of the room. As if it had noticed his stare, it turned and glared right at him. A strange feeling stirred in his heart. Just then, Norman's voice echoed across the room. "Now, while everyone was admiring the fireworks, the game finally ended. Someone had successfully rescued the princess from the tank at the very last minute. Guess who it is?" Outside the secret room, Timothy leaned against the wall, his head lowered, so his expression couldn't be seen clearly. The surrounding guests, however, started whispering to one another. All of them were curious to see who it was. He clenched his fists. Harvey slowly wiped away her tears and whispered, "I know that you're sad and afraid right now, but you have to do me one last favor. Smile at the camera." "What?" Her bottom lip was already trembling from the cold. "Are you asking me to smile after what just happened?" "I know this is cruel, but it's a party. Everyone is watching," he whispered urgently. I need you to smile so that I can finish this once and for all." Evelyn felt warmth spreading across her body as his fingers grazed against her skin, but it was soon replaced with bitterness. For it to end, she had to smile through all her anger? No, I can't. This is just a game, okay? A game and nothing else, and you're its participant. He gripped her shoulders as his eyes darkened. When the voice comes again, I need you to smile. He knew it would be hard for Evelyn to act like this, but the old woman would likely do something bad to her if she messed up and disgraced the family. This was a war between him and his grandmother. It shouldn't involve her, not in the slightest. Fine. I will smile. She gritted her teeth. You are a monster. A game? Her life was just a game to him? How cruel could he be? Harvey could feel his heart heavy with the request he made of her. Although his left hand was still bleeding, he still insisted on holding her. He hoped a bit of his warmth could be passed on to her.
The one and only Harvey saved the princess, Norman chuckled. I know what you're all thinking, but I can assure you there wasn't any collusion between my cousin and me. We originally planned to exclude him from the game, but like many of you, he's pretty psyched about the prize. Who wouldn't be? Now, why don't we turn the cameras onto our champion?
The camera turned to Harvey and Evelyn, who were smiling. The couple looked like they were having the time of their lives from afar. But if one were to look closer, they could see the tremors rippling through her body. Norman saw the way they acted and smirked. I guess she knows how to play the game, he chuckled. What a pity. We would have gotten along if not for this. He turned off his device and stood up. The door was pushed open, with Zach standing on the other side. He could see the dark look in the young man's eyes even from a distance. He smiled casually. Guess I am caught. Zach saw him slowly take off his coat as he tilted his head. Do you remember the times I used to tutor you? He said coldly. You've always been interested in different fighting styles, so I taught you all the moves you know now. Of course I remember, Norman smirked. You're rather good at fighting. It's a pity that you've been demoted to being my cousin's secretary. Otherwise I would have hired you myself. It's quite an honor to be a secretary. A bitter smile slipped onto Zach's lips. Now, why don't you show your former mentor how much you've grown over the years? Oh, I'd love to enlighten you. As he spoke, he immediately got into his stance. Zach had also flung the suit in his hand as he turned sideways. His fists and kicks were quite strong, but Norman's movements were lithe and quick. Despite the strength of Zach's fists, the young man dodged most of his attacks. The two of them moved toward the window, and he couldn't help but frown in confusion. They were in a secret room. There shouldn't be a window, right? However, before he could question the concept, Norman had already opened the window and sat on the ledge. He blocked his fist one more time before laughing. Zach, please pass a message to my cousin. I'm not helping anyone. All of this is just part of the game. Think of it as Russian roulette. And unfortunately, the bullet has hit my cousin. He smiled. I'm sure next time it's my cousin's turn to shoot the gun. Ask him to come see me if he needs an extra hand. Before Zach could say anything, the young man jumped off the ledge. Norman! He bent over to see the young man flying away holding a glider. The young man's voice echoed around him. You're getting rusty, teacher, he teased. It's a good thing you're not the only person to guide me. She's coming back, and we'll see you soon. Zach staggered back, looking as if someone had punched him. He immediately flashed back to the woman in the red dress. A blurry image of her smiling face formed at the back of his mind. No, he can't think about her. Ha ha, what a life! He laughed out loud as the wind slammed against his face. Just then his phone rang and he immediately picked it up. Just the woman I wanted to call. Hello, hello. What are you doing? I'm flying. Oh, do tell me when you're about to drop. Her voice was still as sarcastic as ever. Have you seen Zach? You've always been like this. Shouldn't the air around there knock some senses into you already? He grumbled. I asked you something. Did you meet Zach? How is he? He's still as handsome as ever, he teased, as his eyes shone in bright blue. He's even more handsome when he tries to hit people. But he could be so gullible. The man's too loyal to Harvey for his own good. Is that so? Then I should see him. Immediately, the woman hung up the phone. Zach's fist must hurt now, but the man would be able to get his revenge soon. The party ended shortly after finding Evelyn, as everyone retreated to the first floor. Harvey grabbed this opportunity to sneak her into one of the bedrooms in the mansion. He glanced in her direction. I'll have someone bring you some clothes, he said. Go take a shower first. Evelyn still stayed silent. Knowing what she was thinking about, he said, the situation you saw just now. It's all just an act to force my hand. Whatever we do, we shouldn't have messed with the bed. Get out! She hugged her knees close to her chest. Just get out! He stared deeply into her eyes. He wanted to say something, but he stayed quiet and soft. Evelyn stared at the warm water as tears rolled down her cheeks. How could this have happened? She knew of the man's position, that he was the CEO of his family's company. Perhaps he was right that he didn't have any other choice. But what about her? Why did everyone just decide to disregard her? Why had no one come to apologize? Why did they choose to play with her life? She was just there to act like his date, not a puppet that everyone could play with. How could this happen? Harvey didn't even seek justice for her. Instead, he asked her to smile as the magician's assistant. There were all these people around her, smiling and talking. She could have died. All the while they treated it as some game. She shivered, bowing her head. Why didn't he hold her in his arms? Why did he ask her to smile? Why couldn't she understand him? Why would she suffer for no reason? Raising her head to look at the bathroom, Evelyn felt that her body had gone cold. It was freezing here. She didn't want to stay here anymore. She just wanted to go home. She stepped out of the water in a daze as she wiped her hair. Wrapping her body in a bathrobe, she glanced at the side to see Harvey leaning against the doorway. He immediately passed her the clothes without even looking at her. The party's about to end, so I'll send you home. Evelyn didn't say another word as she took the clothes from his hand. While she noticed that his hand was bleeding, she still pretended to look the other way. He narrowed his eyes at the ceiling, wanting nothing more than to rip his hair out. This was a warning. He was being too bold this time around by refusing to go on another blind date. How could this old woman think that she had the right to control his life? After changing into her clothes, she walked out. I'll send you back, he said softly. I can go back myself. However, before she could go, he grabbed her hand. I'll have to explain to you what happened. Even then, she still didn't listen. Evelyn didn't need an explanation for what had happened. It was just proof that they were worlds apart. She needed to draw a clear line between them and no longer have anything to do with him. She should have done this a long time ago, but she didn't. Now she had to pay the price. Her mind was in such a mess when she opened the door that she didn't even notice a hand aiming for her face. Slap! Her cheeks burned and she immediately staggered back. In front of her was the old matriarch, whose eyes were cold as steel. She shivered, not knowing what else to do. Did the woman just slap her? Would Evelyn be the one whom Dolores would take out her anger? How would Harvey react to this assault on the person he liked the most? Would he grow a spine and stand up against his grandmother? Or would his fear of risking his CEO's position make him cower? Episode 57, A Betrayal. An immense force pulled Evelyn from behind. What the hell do you think you're doing? Harvey was burning with anger. He still wanted the chance to settle the score with this old woman, and now she made matters worse? What the hell was she trying to do with that slap? It was bad enough that she had to force Evelyn's hand, but to attack her like this? He was the one who brought Evelyn here. Everything should have been aimed at him, not her. Never her. Who are you yelling at? What do you think I'm doing? I'm teaching you a lesson. Do you think I was wrong for slapping her? If so, maybe you should take the next slap. His grandmother's tone was even colder than his as she raised her hand to hit him. Harvey instinctively held her hand, and the atmosphere became even tenser. The two of them stared at each other for a long time. Don't you deserve to be slapped? She snapped coldly. Perhaps your position as CEO has become too comfortable for you. Maybe you need to be taught a lesson. Harvey immediately let go of her hand, suppressing the emotions raging inside. You don't have to be so harsh. Isn't it obvious whether or not I deserve to be the CEO? He snarled. I can do better than anyone else in this house. Slap! His head swung to the right, and he could feel his cheek stinging from the pain. However, instead of gritting his teeth from the smack, he stood his ground and took it. Using his blood-stained hand to stroke his face, he tilted his head. Are you done? He asked. The only reason I'm taking your slaps is so that you wouldn't call me names. Sometimes I wonder if slapping is all you can do. She slapped him once again, trembling in anger. You haven't learned your lesson, have you? Harvey only straightened his back in response. Evelyn stood behind him, staring at his blood-stained fist. Her heartstrings tugged painfully. She hated him for forcing her to smile, and she felt hurt being slapped by the old lady. But she couldn't help but writhe in anger at the sight of him being wronged like this. She couldn't just stand there and watch him get beaten up. She stared at his injured fists and she gritted her teeth. No one ever cared to ask how he was. He was Harvey, one of the richest men in the country. Seeing him get ridiculed like this, perhaps love had driven her crazy. Seeing this person so injured, she couldn't stand by and watch him suffer. He shouldn't be bullied like this. What right did they have to bully him? What right did they have to treat him like this? Like some mad dog to be put down? Suddenly, she ran out of the room, breaking up the standoff. Harvey couldn't help but gaze at her retreating figure, not knowing what she was up to. Even his grandmother didn't know how to react. Evelyn appeared in the doorway within a few seconds with a towel in her hands. Standing next to him, she lowered her head and concentrated on the depth of the injury before wrapping it with a towel. "Hold it there for now," she mumbled. "I'll bandage this for you after we go home." Harvey was stunned for a moment. However, as he stared at her damp hair and watery eyes, an indescribable feeling welled up in his chest. What the hell was this woman doing? She was scared before all of this. He would have just expected her to run away and avoid him at all costs. Yet not only did she return to him, but she is treating his hand. He wondered what was going on in her head. She raised her head up to look at him as if reading his thoughts. Her cold and dead eyes had shifted into one filled with warmth. "Let's go." He stared at her. At that moment, he wanted to follow through and trail behind her. Wherever she'd go, he'd make sure that he'd follow, always and forever. Life would be good, as long as she was in it. "And where the hell did you come from?" his grandmother interrupted. "Who said he can leave like this?" At the old woman's shrieking voice, she clenched her fists. Something inside her snapped. "Are you done?" She grabbed hold of his wrist and snarled at the old matriarch. "Who the hell do you think he is? Some kind of lapdog that you can just order around? Don't you feel even the least bit sorry for him? He may be the CEO of the company, but damn it, shouldn't he be your grandson first?" Evelyn had always made sure that she never stepped on anyone's toes and respected her elders. However, after seeing such a scene, she couldn't help but stand up for him. Sometimes she might be weak, but she knew how to peck people to death when her feathers were ruffled. How could a family treat each other like this? Now, she couldn't help but understand why Harvey was the man he was today. If she were the one who had to work with this woman, she would have been so bitter to never find love. "Who the hell do you think you're talking to? Do you think this has anything to do with me educating my grandson?" The old woman took another step forward. "If you want to meddle in other people's business, why don't you look at how you're doing? Do you think you'd have a life here in New York if you offend me? I'm only telling the truth, that you're a cold-blooded slap." Evelyn felt her head swinging right. While her face didn't thrum in pain as before, the betrayal brewing in her chest felt even more painful. She stared up at Harvey in disbelief. He was the one who had slapped her. But why? Wasn't she defending him? Wasn't she the one standing up for him? Why was he looking at her like that with such cold eyes? "I don't remember saving a bitch," he snapped coldly. "Unbelievable. Go, now." "A bitch?" Tears welled up in her eyes as she staggered back a few steps. "I hate you," she cried out. "I will never forgive you." All the love she had for him, all the care she had put on to mitigate the pain in his heart, everything was a mistake. How could he do that to her? Was he lying when he said that he liked her? Not knowing where else to turn to, Evelyn stumbled down the stairs. She didn't even have the time to change into her heels. She lost a slipper halfway down the lobby as the clock struck 12. Was she Cinderella then? Running for her life? Why did she look more miserable than ever? His grandmother stared at Harvey, who was too busy staring at her retreating figure from a distance. "Are you this persistent in protecting her?" A bitter smile slipped onto his lips. "Of course. She has stood up for me, and it's well within my rights to protect her from you." He looked up at her. "Now, what do you want me to do?" "I want you and Sierra to be engaged in 2 months." "All right. I promise that we'll negotiate according to our old rules." He tilted his head. "Are we clear about that?" "I agree," she nodded. "But I ask that you stay in the manor tonight. You are not to chase after that woman or call her. That's your punishment." Evelyn cried as she ran out of the banquet. Timothy stood by the side of the mansion waiting. While a part of him knew she might not come out of that place, he still got the driver to send Megan back first. He leaned against the pillar and stayed, hoping that she was all right. Just as Timothy was clearing his thoughts, he saw a shadowy figure sprinting out of the mansion. His eyes widened in disbelief as he took a step forward, trying to get a better look. Was that Evelyn? She's crying. Indeed, she was crying. She stumbled across the pavement with only one slipper. What happened? He felt a stabbing pain in his heart as he took off his coat jacket. He threw it over her frail body, not knowing what else to do. At first, she froze from the sudden warmth before glancing up at the man who had come to her aid. One glance at him and she started crying even harder. It wasn't Harvey. He didn't chase after her. But how could he when he was the one who had slapped her? Her heart was in so much pain that she didn't even bother saying another word. Unable to stand by and watch, Timothy held out his hand.
I'll take you home.
She shook her head.
Please, don't cry,
he whispered. Every time he saw her cry, he felt like someone was kicking him in the guts. However, his gentle voice only made her cry even harder. Just go away. She squatted down, desperately trying to wave him off. Don't you get it? You're all the same. I don't want you here anymore. What the hell did I do wrong? I just wanted someone to love me. Someone to care for me. Am I that bad? Just leave. I don't want you here anymore. She truly didn't understand. Why the hell did the universe have to torture her like this? She wasn't greedy at all. She wanted one person to care for her and love her, just as she would do for them. Was it that unattainable? She had already learned her lesson with Timothy, but why was she again torturing herself with someone like Harvey? Why did it still hurt? She was some naive little girl. Her heart had broken, and she was still too hurt to pick it right back up. What the hell was she doing? Timothy stared at her trembling figure. Seeing her sob was enough for his throat to go dry. Why the hell was he so useless? Not knowing what else to do, he slowly squatted beside her and stroked the sides of her hair.
You're the best woman I've ever met. You're warm, kind, courageous, and a bit stubborn. You don't deserve this much pain. I could never give you the happiness you needed, and neither could Harvey. But I promise you'll find that man someday, he whispered. You'll find someone who would love you as his entire world depended on it. And you'll live the life you deserve.
Yes, she'd meet someone else. Someone who was everything she deserved. She didn't deserve to be locked down with a monster like Harvey. She didn't deserve to suffer. Is there such a person? Evelyn helplessly stared up at Timothy as if she were grasping at straws. Timothy's heart ached, but he could only smile in response. He reached out his hand to wipe the tears from the corner of her eyes. He confirmed, You will meet him, and I swear he'll love you very much. He won't give you any false hope, as I did, and he wouldn't fool you around like Harvey. He'll make you happy, but all you have to do is wait, okay? Don't be sad. You'll be fine. Evelyn bit her lips and nodded. He whispered, Let's go home, okay? She slowly nodded. Timothy carried her as he smiled. You are so light, he teased. You should eat more. Evelyn wrapped her arms around his neck as the faint smell of lemongrass surrounded her. His back was warm against her cold dress. Even after all these years, she still felt familiar with him. However, she knew that all her happiness and sadness, they didn't belong to him anymore, but to the man in the mansion. Time had helped her get over Timothy. Could she say the same about Harvey? Would there be a time when she wouldn't feel a single thing for him anymore? Would she soon forget his devastatingly beautiful smile? Would she ever get over his charming voice and his achingly soft touch? Would Harvey try to get her back? And if he did, would Evelyn forgive his betrayal? Episode 58. Will this happen again? Thinking of Harvey and his betrayal filled her heart with even more despair. She leaned against Timothy's shoulder and murmured, Harvey's a bastard. He pursed his lips. He doesn't care for anyone. He doesn't listen to reason. He's despicable and shameless. He doesn't even know how to treat others with respect, But you. Evelyn bowed her head, sniffling. But I love him. Timothy carried her in silence. There were only a few street lights guiding their pathway. She leaned against him as she had always done before. She'd always come looking for him as a young girl. During those times, even if nothing was wrong, he'd carry her in his arms, and she'd wrap her arms around his neck. "Timothy, you're the best," she would say sweetly. "I love you." And he'd simply smile in response. That was a long time ago. He had thought she'd wait for him, and they would grow old together. But time was cruel. Here she was in his arms and his heart, crying for another man. He could only hope that one day she'd meet someone who could give her the happiness she craved for. Don't be sad. Don't cry. Just go to sleep and dream of a better place. Evelyn was just exhausted after everything that had happened. She couldn't help but fall asleep in his arms as he carried her. She wanted to dream of her home, where she could finally find peace and rest. However, instead, she stepped into a seemingly unfamiliar house. It wasn't the apartment she and Mark used to live in. Rather, it was a small home with warm tones and defined columns. A sweet smell floated around her, and she could hear the violins sound from afar. There she saw a man watering the flowers. What's that? Oh, it's a crocheted doll. She'd always loved playing with them as a kid. He had learned to make them for her. He? Evelyn blinked wearily, and the man disappeared right before her eyes. Slowly, the trickles of warmth felt cold against her skin, and she furrowed her brows. Where was this place? Why is it so warm and familiar? Where was she? Evelyn. Before she could find the answer, she snapped back to reality. She glanced down to see that her arms were tightly wrapped around Timothy's neck, and he was lowering her to the ground. We're here. My house. Mm-hmm. He nodded. You should get some sleep. I'll be leaving. Timothy was about to head down the road when she pulled him back. It's already past 1 o'clock, she said. It'll be dangerous if you head out again. Why don't you sleep in Mark's room for the night? Timothy hesitated. It's not like you haven't slept over before. A thought occurred to her, and she blushed in embarrassment. Right, but Megan would probably mind. How could she forget he was already engaged? It wouldn't be convenient for him now. Timothy was stunned for a moment. Upon seeing the look on her face, he wanted to tell her he wasn't engaged to Megan, that he had rejected her proposal. However, as soon as the words reached up to his throat, he swallowed them again. It's fine. She wouldn't mind. A smile slipped onto his lips. I guess I'll be troubling you tonight. Discussing with her about the canceled engagement would only cause confusion. It wouldn't do the both of them any good. Then you can spend the night. Pursing her lips, she opened the door and allowed him to come in. After getting him some toiletries, she returned to her room and slept. Evelyn was exhausted. She glanced at the bruise on her wrist as the faint memory flashed at the back of her mind. Everything that had happened in the past few weeks was all because of him. Harvey. They were worlds apart. What had happened tonight just proved it. She might as well stay far away from him. That way she wouldn't have to face these terrible situations. However, even as she resolved to do this, a bad feeling stirred in her chest. How could she possibly stay away from him? That night in the manor, Harvey was confined in his room. His injured hand was being bandaged, but he didn't care. He stared out the window with a dark look on his face. I'm sorry, Harvey. Zach bowed his head. Norman has escaped. Forget it. He shrugged. Even if we caught him, he has a protector. There was a pause before he asked, should I go to Evelyn and explain to her what just happened? No. I won't see her for the following week, so don't bother. Zach furrowed his eyebrows. Does that mean you've grown tired of her? Harvey tilted his head. Had he? It's not like that. It's the opposite. He paused as a smile played on his lips. I just need a week to think about what to do with her. This warm and bright woman differed from his interests and hobbies. As she had said, they were just from two different worlds. However, something about her drew him in, like a moth to a flame. His heart, once surrounded with walls, had softened when around her. Suddenly, everything in his world had gotten more complicated. What should he do about her? He pursed his lips. Zach, I still need Megan, he ordered. Tell her I'll intervene to save her father's company. In exchange, she'll keep doing as I ask her to. It would be beneficial if she saw me as an ally rather than an enemy. That way, she'd be more effective in drawing the line between Evelyn and Timothy. From today's incident, he could tell that the man cared for her. He was a danger to his plans. After all, Evelyn had liked him in the past. He should plan this intricately and slowly. Sure, Zach nodded. Harvey took a sip from his whiskey, still feeling the lingering heat of Evelyn's hand on his wrist. His fingers trailed across the bandage with a frown. It was her warmth that he refused to share with anyone else. Gazing out of the window, Harvey stared at the lights. He couldn't help but wonder what Evelyn would think if he didn't see her for a week. Would she miss him? Would she think of him? On the other side of the city, Evelyn didn't sleep well that night, so she woke up early the next day. Perhaps because yesterday she was soaked in the cold water, she felt a bit under the weather today. Her nose was stuffy and her throat was sore, but that didn't stop her from getting out of bed. Evelyn quickly prepared bacon with eggs and toast. As she did so, Timothy twisted and turned on his bed. Should he talk to Harvey? The accident last night had been all too much for her, but he didn't know whether or not he should talk things through with the man. Just as he was thinking, a fragrant smell entered his room. A warm feeling settled in his chest as he stepped into the living room and peered into the kitchen. There he could see Evelyn making breakfast for both of them. She was wearing a loose apron with her hair up in a loose bun. The sunlight shone through the windows, enveloping her like a jacket. His dream had always been that he'd wake up to see her preparing their meals. Then he'd go up and wrap his arms around her waist. She'd laugh and ask him not to bother her, but he still wouldn't let her go. Timothy blinked as a bittersweet smile slipped onto his lips. He knew this dream was unattainable, and this is the closest his dream could be in reality. "Timothy, you're awake. I just made breakfast. Have some." Evelyn sneezed, covering her face awkwardly. Timothy tilted his head. "Did you catch a cold? Do you have any medicine? I could head to the store and buy you something to help." "There's no need for that. My medicine cabinet is all stocked up, and I just drank some. That should help." Afraid that it would become troublesome for him, Evelyn immediately stopped him. It was a quiet morning. At least it was supposed to be a quiet morning. Soon Timothy would finish his breakfast and head back home in time for work. She would get some sleep before heading out to work for her afternoon shift. That was supposed to be the plan. However, she could hear the front door unlocking at the back as she served breakfast. "Sis, I just finished the competition yesterday, so I got back early," Mark's voice echoed across the living room. He followed the traces of the sweet smell and stepped into the dining room. There he stared at the intimate sight. While Timothy was seated, Evelyn was hovering above him and serving him food. His face darkened. What the hell was going on? Evelyn felt her heart stop when she saw him. It was over for her, wasn't it? While Mark was her younger brother, he still acted as if he was her protective older brother, making sure that no man in sight would touch her or even look at her. It definitely looked like they had spent the night together. The uncomfortable feeling stirred in her stomach. "Mark, listen to me," Evelyn immediately intervened. "It's not what it looks like, I swear." The spoon clattered onto the table as she placed her arms around her chest, looking like a wife who had just been caught cheating. She didn't know what else to say. Would she speak about the banquet? No, it would only make him angrier. Timothy glanced at the man's pulsating face and her embarrassed look before shaking his head. Mark had always been like this ever since the beginning. He never did like him, probably because he felt Timothy couldn't give her the happiness she deserved. Perhaps he was right. With a smile, he slowly stood up. "Mark, please don't misunderstand us," he said easily, as if he was talking about the weather. "I went to the restaurant for dinner yesterday, and your sister was working overtime. The car broke down in the middle of the road as I drove her home. Your sister offered me to stay for the night because I couldn't fix it. I ended up using your room. I'm sorry." "Is that so?" Mark pursed his lips unamused. "Then it's time to go." "Mark," Evelyn frowned. "You can't be serious." However, before she could finish, her brother gazed at her sharply. Something about his look made her shrink back and stay silent, unable to move or say anything else. Her brother had become more stubborn. Knowing that he was unwelcome here, Timothy smiled and stepped back. "If that's the case, I should head back. Thank you, Evelyn." I'm sorry, Timothy." She bowed her head. "Mark didn't have any bad intentions. He's just going through some stuff right now." "Stuff?" Mark snorted. Evelyn didn't dare look him in the eye. As soon as she said her goodbyes to Timothy, she stomped over towards him. "What the heck's your problem? He brought me home out of kindness. He didn't even do anything. Why do you look like you want to cut his throat?" Why did he look like he wanted to cut his throat out? Because he wanted to. Mark's chest burned with anger and dissatisfaction. The man was his rival more than anyone in the world. Whenever he'd see him, his anger would flare to life. Unfortunately, he couldn't say that. Instead, he lectured. "Do you know how dangerous men are at night? Their hormones make them do irrational things. Is it hard not to be so naive sometimes? Not only did you bring a guy home for the night, but you even cooked him breakfast. Do you know what hope you're giving him?" Speechless, Evelyn simply bowed her head. Fine. You're right. I don't have any other reason to argue with you anymore.
Do you like him or something? Of course not. Will this happen again? Don't worry. There won't be a next time. I swear I'll follow your orders.
Even after hearing this, Mark wasn't wholly convinced. He reached out his arms and hugged her, snorting.
I'm the only one who can hug you, okay?
Yes, she smiled. Evelyn held him in her arms. She had always been a little demure around him, thinking that he wouldn't throw a tantrum. After all, she was his older sister. If Timothy had been interested in her, he wouldn't have rejected her years ago. After all, the man had always been a man of his word. If the man sitting in front of her wasn't Timothy, but someone else, he would have found a reason to beat him up. After that, Evelyn finally got him to eat breakfast. She handed him the plate she had set up for Timothy. Eat up. Glancing at the plate, Mark pursed his lips and turned away.
I don't want this. I want a fresh plate.
This is a fresh plate. He didn't even touch it, she explained.
But this was made for Timothy. I don't want it. You can't eat this either. Throw it out,
he ordered, shaking his head rapidly. Not knowing what else to say, Evelyn sighed. Fine, I'll set another plate for you. How did her brother become so arrogant and stubborn? Didn't she raise him to be more kind and level-headed? If Mark continued to behave like this, how long before Evelyn figured out the actual reason behind his possessiveness? What excuses would Mark make to justify his unreasonably rude behavior? Episode 59. A Sudden Meetup. Angry with Mark's behavior towards Timothy, Evelyn murmured bitterly, "Looks like I didn't teach him anything." Mark tilted his head.
"What did you say?"
"It's nothing. I was just concerned about the education system." Achoo! Evelyn sneezed as tears welled up in her eyes.
"Are you okay?"
Afraid that he'd be worried, she quickly waved him off. "Nope, it's just a little cold. I'll rest later." He didn't believe her one bit. Evelyn had always underestimated her immune system, which sometimes resulted in many sick days in the past. Pulling her wrist, Mark held her hand and felt her temperature. Their foreheads pressed against each other as the tips of their noses brushed. Her forehead was hot against his and his frown deepened.
"You said you're not sick."
His face darkened.
"You're burning up."
"All I need is some rest and
eat your meal and head to bed," he ordered. "Leave the rest to me."
After breakfast, Evelyn was shooed back into her room. Testing her temperature, he sighed.
"I'll call the restaurant and tell them you'll take the day off," he said. "You aren't allowed to go anywhere today."
No, I can't," Evelyn protested.
"Are you trying to make me angry? How can you go to work today when you're burning up?"
Mark rubbed his forehead in frustration.
"Just stay here and go to sleep, okay? You can even watch some television in the living room if you're bored. But if you want to go to work, I have no other choice but to come with you."
"But Evelyn flushed in embarrassment. She certainly didn't need him following her around at work.
"Fine.
But you just finished your competition."
"It's fine," he shrugged. "The final round is not until later."
"You'll win, right?"
"If we win, we'll get a bonus, so I'll treat you."
"All right." After comforting Evelyn for a while longer, he finally returned to his room and looked around. Timothy touched nothing he wasn't supposed to from the looks of things, but he was still unhappy. Even if he wasn't there, Mark could still feel like he was, as if a part of him still hadn't left. Why did she have to invite him over? He stripped the sheets from the bed with a scowl and threw them into the washing machine. Evelyn was lying in her room on the other side of the apartment. While she was a bit sleepy, her thoughts were still scrambled. She fumbled for her cell phone and opened it. However, there were no missed calls or text messages. Would Harvey reach out to her? She inhaled deeply as her mind raced back over the details of the night before. Wouldn't it be better for her to end her relationship with him? Their relationship was like a rock sinking into the bottom of the ocean anyway. It would do her better to break it off. However, as she thought of disappearing from his life, she could feel a pang in her heart. Her hands gripped the sheets beneath her. Perhaps her love for him must stop here. Timothy had always said that one day she'd meet the guy who'd love her. She should wait for him. Timothy was not that person, and after the stunt he just pulled, Harvey was also off the list. With this in mind, she decided to give up on him as soon as possible. Putting her phone down, Evelyn closed her eyes and took a deep breath. It's over. It's over. They wouldn't have a good ending anyway. Their love wasn't deep enough to survive this mess. Soon, Evelyn fell asleep. However, even if she slept the entire morning, she still didn't feel better. Her heart felt lost on what to do next. Mark walked in and noticed that she was in a funk. Thinking that it was because she was sick, he stroked her long hair.
"It must be boring here," he said. "Do you want some soup? You can eat some, and we can watch baseball together.
I want a romance movie, she said.
Roman holiday?
No, love letters. She shook her head.
Okay, we'll watch whatever you want to.
Mark carried her out of the bedroom and onto the sofa with a nod and wrapped a blanket around her. The movie was sweet and romantic, and Evelyn started crying in the middle. Tears rolled down her cheeks. He sighed at the sight. For a woman to cry like this after watching a movie, he couldn't help but think that she was naive. However, he couldn't help but like that trait of hers. She leaned into his arms. She felt hollow within. As she thought of the couple's love in the movie, she couldn't help but feel the pain throbbing in her chest. Harvey hadn't tried to contact her since she had left his mansion last night. Every time she glanced at her phone, it filled her heart with longing, and then memories of last night would come flooding. She would remember his cold eyes and his grandmother's words. Liking him, it seemed, would be the death of her. And it turned out it probably meant nothing to him. Quite a few days had passed since that horrible night, but Harvey hadn't tried to reach out to her. To not think about him, she worked every day, taking more shifts than she had intended. All she wanted was to forget about everything. Someday, she'd be able to move on from him. I'm leaving now. Evelyn nodded at her colleague as she headed out of the restaurant a week later. It was 3:00 in the afternoon, but she didn't feel like heading home. Instead, she walked around aimlessly before sitting on a bench. Evelyn's phone rang. It was Cindy. Guess who's back from my trip? Let's go shopping, okay? Maybe some other day, she suggested. I just got off work and I'm too lazy to walk around the mall. She frowned. I just came back and I haven't seen you for so long. And this is how I get treated? It's hot. Look, I swear, we can go out another day, okay? Fine. While Cindy sounded disappointed, she still dropped the topic. After saying their goodbyes, Evelyn hung up the phone and stared out into space. Her mind was a mess. She had always thought that the moment Harvey was out of her life, she'd throw her hands up in the air and celebrate. But now that he had finally disappeared, why did it feel as if she was going through the greatest pain of her life?
Why is it that your sadness still hasn't gone away?
A mellow voice sounded right behind her. She noticed a familiar pair of leather shoes as she turned to the man. Huh? She glanced up. The man gave her a sideways smile. His face was mature, but there was a gentle nature to his features, enough to make anyone feel comfortable in his presence. The man looked familiar. Evelyn blinked in disbelief. You're the gentleman who helped me. She never thought she'd see this man again, much less meet him 3 times. The first time they met, he had given her a brooch. The second time they met, he had given her his umbrella. So far, this man was like a guardian angel who showed up at the strangest times.
Please, don't call me that. The mysterious man smiled helplessly before chuckling. You know, when people meet 3 times, they say it's fate. So why don't I introduce myself? I'm Luke Bigman.
Evelyn, she introduced herself. Thank you again for your help.
It's nothing. Besides, when I saw you while I was walking past, I couldn't help but talk to you.
His eyes glinted.
You always look like your world has just fallen apart whenever we meet.
At the thought, Evelyn smiled bitterly. The last time we met, you hoped we wouldn't meet in unfortunate circumstances. Yet it seems my world hasn't changed at all.
Do you want to talk about it?
He offered.
I may not know how to comfort you, but I've been told I'm a superb listener.
It's not that big of a deal. She crossed her arms over her chest. Heartbreak is something everyone experiences, right?
No matter how normal these experiences may be, the pain still feels raw.
Luke Bigman stared up at the sky.
Sometimes it would take months or years for you to move past it. There's no need to understate the pain you're feeling.
It is painful,
and it will continue to be painful. He sighed. You never need to apologize for crying it out. A good cry can clear the soul, and I promise soon it will get better.
Thank you, she said, feeling a genuine smile cross her face. The sycamore trees in the distance blocked the afternoon sunlight. Shadows grew across the street, and the leaves rustled in the wind. As she spoke, Evelyn felt a little bit better. Harvey was in the company's headquarters. While he was in a meeting with Zach, he didn't seem interested in what Zach had to say about the business.
Sir, this is the quarterly report. We've seen that women's wear has become our best seller this season. It's only half the season, and our sales have surged way past the previous quarters. We are very close to winning the sales competition in the Maldives. Sir, are you listening to me?
Zach closed the report and tilted his head. Harvey was immediately pulled back from his thoughts.
Ah, right, he said. As you said, we'll win the competition.
Of course, sir. Nodding, a thought suddenly occurred to him.
You've been distracted lately. If you're thinking about Evelyn, I can inform her of this matter just so...
A week without contact would have been automatic grounds for a breakup. If they continued like this, she would have moved on entirely. Harvey understood what he meant. Glancing up at the clock, he stood up and fixed his suit.
I've already thought enough. He pursed his lips. It's time that I see her.
Zach heaved a sigh of relief. While the president had been in the office every day, the young lady distracted him and he struggled to be productive. This was the first time he had ever been so preoccupied with something so mundane. Perhaps meeting up with her would be the best course of action for him. Zach smiled. However, before he could pack up, he heard his boss's words.
I need you to reserve a restaurant and ask Cindy to come with me. I want to speak with her.
Huh? Seeing that Harvey was about to walk right out the door, he hurriedly caught up with him.
This isn't right, he sputtered. Weren't you supposed to see Evelyn? Why do you want to meet up with Cindy?
What was going on in his mind? Zach just couldn't read him. About an hour later, Harvey and Cindy found themselves sitting opposite each other at the cafe. There weren't many people around, so things between them were awkwardly silent. A few seconds later, the two of them ordered coffee.
I want an Americano, no sugar or cream, he ordered.
Even she couldn't help but wince at the order. How masochistic could a man be to drink something that bitter? With a curled lip at his choice of beverage, she turned to the waiter. I want a cappuccino, please. When the drinks were finally served, she turned to look up at the man sitting in front of her. I'm flattered that you've asked me out for coffee, she said cautiously, sipping from her cup. Is there a reason for this sudden appointment? Episode 60. Plan for Reconciliation. Cindy remembered how stunned she was when she had received a call from Harvey's secretary. However, while the appointment was unexpected, she could somewhat guess what this was all about. Evelyn. Cindy still couldn't understand their relationship. Evelyn had said that this was just a misunderstanding, that they were enemies turned acquaintances, but she had always felt there was something more physical to their relationship. Just then, his lips curled upwards.
I want to know everything about Evelyn. Of course, I'm not just referring to her background, but her hobbies, likes, dislikes, everything.
And why is someone like you interested in these things? She needed to get some information out of this first. If he were planning something despicable against her friend, she'd avoid all the important details and settle on the unimportant ones. Harvey was smart enough to know what the woman was thinking, so he told her,
I'm interested in Evelyn. I want her to be my lover. He shrugged. That's why I want to know more about her.
Evelyn had said that he didn't understand her and couldn't help her. This time, he'd like to figure out everything she liked and talk to her again so that she wouldn't be able to say anything in rebuttal. While surprised, Cindy tried to maintain her demeanor as she sipped her drink. Tucking her hair behind her ear, she regarded the man coldly, as if he wasn't the richest man in the city. Do you want to play with her? She doesn't look like your type.
My hobbies have become the city's gossip, huh?
Evelyn is a little naive, but she's beautiful and sweet. She has a unique charm around her, but she's not strong enough to handle you. She crossed her arms over her chest. Can't you choose another woman to play around with instead? She knew her friend well. Her friend would never be his lover, or fling for that matter.
No.
He tilted his head, appearing arrogant, as he's always been.
I'm determined to win her, while no one in the world could affect me. I admit Evelyn is the only person who had pushed me to want to keep her by my side. I'll give her everything she asks of me. All I ask is that you help me.
Cindy saw the smile on his face, and a shiver shot through her spine. She knew he wasn't the type to let things go. What he wants, he gets. She clenched her hands under the table as she squinted her eyes at him. Thinking about it more, she intoned, I know no one can stop you from what you're trying to do, but I believe you're wasting your time. Evelyn wouldn't agree to be your lover.
Harvey narrowed his eyes. Why not? He asked. As you've said, no one can stop me.
There were so many women fighting to get into his bed. Thousands of them had already declared their love for him online and in social media. Why would Evelyn resist his charms? Why should he stop? Cindy raised her eyebrows. She wants to be with someone she loves and can love her back. Evelyn always yearned for someone she could love for a lifetime. Cindy believed that Evelyn would be able to meet someone who would love her as desperately and selflessly as she had loved her brother Timothy one day. That day, she was sure that her friend would find true happiness. She sighed inwardly. Ugh, the pains of love. The sunlight illuminated everything inside the cafe, casting shadows on his dark, forbidding face. Evelyn only needed to stay by his side. No, she had to stay by his side. Even if he couldn't give her this so-called love, he could give her everything else she could ask for. Even if she didn't have love, she could still live happily with him. If Evelyn doesn't want to compromise, then I will try my best to make her. This is a resort ticket. Ask her to go to the resort this weekend. Tell her you arranged it for her. I will take care of the rest. Harvey pushed the ticket in front of Cindy. Cindy hesitated for a moment and smiled. It's just a small favor, and there's nothing I can do if she refuses. Even if I give it and she doesn't go, we're good, right?
Yes, you are very smart,
Harvey said. I will give it to her. I will take my leave now. Cindy took the ticket and left. She didn't feel that it was wrong per se, because she believed that even if Evelyn went to the resort to meet with Harvey, she would not agree to anything. Harvey would be the one to suffer in the end. Take it and let Evelyn relax. She can have some fun also. Evelyn was also saying goodbye to Luke on the other side of town. The two of them were going in different directions. Luke saw that she looked much better. There was a gentle smile on her face.
I am relieved to see you smiling. You look beautiful when you smile.
Evelyn blinked and thought maybe she didn't hear him clearly. What? Luke shook his head.
It's nothing. I hope we'll see each other again. Okay, goodbye,
Luke said. Luke watched her walk across the street with a smile.
Have a happy life, and try not to look so sad. You used to be, but you aren't now, Evelyn, he murmured.
Cindy appeared in the restaurant when Evelyn was about to get off work. Evelyn, you have kept me waiting forever. Will you spend some time with me? Cindy looked at her and raised her eyebrows. Evelyn realized how remiss she had been in catching up with Cindy. I know, I'm sorry, and I'll go with you today. This should work, right? That's more like it. Let's have some coffee. Evelyn changed into a simple pair of shorts and a t-shirt and followed her outside. The temperature today was exceptionally high. The two of them moved quickly to a nearby coffee shop. After sitting down inside, Evelyn and Cindy had a lot of catching up to do. Evelyn was very upset because of Harvey and did not want to talk about him. She blurted out, By the way, how are your brother and sister-in-law? Cindy stared at her speechless. You still don't know? Didn't he tell you when you met him? He isn't with Megan, as he broke off the engagement. When I called you back, you were so upset that I said nothing. Who knew that after so long you still didn't know? Evelyn was stunned, and her expression showed her disbelief. Impossible. Are you teasing me? Your brother clearly said. Evelyn stopped and lowered her head in embarrassment. Cindy did not need to lie to her, so why did Timothy? For her own good. For her to not once mistake his tenderness for love. Evelyn sighed. He was so considerate. It didn't matter. She wouldn't be swayed by Timothy now. She didn't know when an overbearing person invaded her heart. He occupied her heart and didn't let her think of anyone else. What's wrong? What did my brother say to you? Cindy saw her lower her head and asked in confusion. Evelyn looked up and smiled. It's okay. I misunderstood and thought that he and Megan were still together. But don't worry. Even if he is not engaged now, I will not bug him. Cindy saw that she happily let her brother off the hook with a smile. I know that you have already said so, but life is like that. You sometimes lose things. Often things can't be recovered, such as the past, lost dolls, unsaved files, and cheating lovers, and the first love that can never be returned to. This was how things were meant to be. She couldn't keep returning to him, hoping for something to be different. It was better than chasing after him again and never being able to catch him. In the beginning, Cindy was furious. However, Timothy always kept silent. Only then did Cindy gradually understand. Relationships could not be forced. Timothy doted on Evelyn, but he did not love her. That was all. By the way, what's going on between you and Harvey? Why did he look for you to shoot an advertisement? Did he seek you out because you were stunning? Cindy asked. Cindy understood nothing about her and Harvey, so she wanted to get some questions answered. Evelyn stirred the spoon in the coffee. She blinked her eyes and looked out of the window. If it were that simple, then it would have been good. He and I are strangers. He always finds trouble with me, and yet he saves me from danger repeatedly. You know, I don't like people like him who are overbearing. I clearly like gentlemen, and I hate relationships that end in misery, but I always think of him. Evelyn looked at Cindy and smiled bitterly. Don't scold me. I've already secretly scolded myself countless times. She had chastised herself, but she would still miss him. She couldn't control herself. I didn't think that you and he had already reached such a deep level. Evelyn, this is beyond a point of return. If you like him, you'll be even more doomed than with my brother. Cindy looked at her worriedly and said. Cindy was starting to regret taking that ticket now. She had fallen for it. As a friend, she shouldn't have. Evelyn nodded. Yes, I know. I know everything. I don't plan on getting anything from Harvey. It's just that sometimes my thoughts are out of control. Evelyn laughed at herself. I haven't seen him for a week now. I'm afraid he's forgotten what I look like, but I still want to see him. I want to, but I deal with this kind of thing now by remaining calm. My thoughts of him will probably dissipate after a while. As long as she did not meet him, she would get used to it and forget about him. In the end, he would simply be a memory. Cindy looked at her sad expression and felt like a huge rock had been pressed down on her heart. You're right. Time will dilute everything, Cindy said dryly. Evelyn looked at the sky. Yes, but I don't know how long it will take. I don't know. Evelyn sounded like she was giving up on herself, but Cindy heard what she said. Forget it. Don't think about it. It will be more uncomfortable if you think about it. Cindy took out the ticket to the resort from her bag and said, The ticket to a resort, the highest quality one. Evelyn, go enjoy it on the weekend. Perhaps it was better to give this ticket to her and let her enjoy it. After all, it was all Harvey's money. If he wanted to, she could just let him spend it. Besides, it was better for her to be injured now than to wait and be broken-hearted in the future. Evelyn needed to get some closure, then draw a clear boundary with that man. You will have a better man to love. Don't go to that kind of person. Don't be doomed forever. Evelyn was stunned when she saw the ticket in front of her. Evelyn looked at the ticket in front of her and bit her lower lip. She did not enjoy going out to such places herself and was not in the mood. Evelyn pushed the ticket back to Cindy and said, I'm not going. A resort like this is not suitable for me. It's so high quality. Take it and enjoy it yourself. Cindy crossed her arms and raised her brows indifferently. I fill my life with enjoyment every day. Once again, pushing the tickets in front of her, Cindy said, I know what you are worried about. It's about Mark. It's only a weekend and he won't starve to death. A big sister complex is an illness. It must be treated. Cindy had just finished speaking when she saw someone knocking on the window outside.